Dante. I am the Associate Artistic Director with B3 Theater. And with me tonight is the Artistic Director of B3 Theater, Ilana Lydia. We're very honored and happy and just pleased as punch to have as our guest artist tonight, Mitchell Vantrease. All right, good. Well,
Hi.
welcome. So, I just have a few questions for you, and these are questions that always just pop into my mind when I'm talking with fellow artists. And one of it is we as artists have many voices.
Mhm.
So what would you say is your strongest voice, and in what venue do you prefer to express that voice?
My strongest voice is directing.
Mhm.
Um, eh, I found out a lot of people have told me that I'm a great performer, I'm a great singer, but I think stepping on the other side of the table and really learning about that, um, especially here in Tennessee, I've really found that voice and that passion for me. I love performing. There's anything like it, but I believe my ultimate voice is storytelling.
Mm,
And
mhm,
that's where my voice is. I really love telling stories. My favorite part is the rehearsal process. I've worked with you, and I remember you saying one day, because I listened to everything all the directors I've ever worked with as an actor have said, and he said, the best part about the whole process is the rehearsal process. It's the shaping and the molding
mhm,
of the piece, and the actual live audience and the performance is just the icing on the cake.
mhm. Um, uh, you had mentioned, performing, and I also know that about you. And I think that your strengths also is in performing. Your vocal ability and singing, and your acting ability, and the things that you explore. And it's also one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you, as because we're the three B's, right? Bold, brazen, and brilliant. And I think you bring that to the table on everything that you do. And if it's not there, you will find a way to get it there. Which brings me to this question: what do you think is your weakest, and how do you strengthen that? What is your process?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, my weakest. I wouldn't necessarily it's my weakest, but I would say I'm the type of person that I I'm a perfectionist. And if that's considered
No, yeah.
a weak thing, I'm a perfectionist. I drive and I drive and I drive and I drive
Hmm.
until I feel like I can get it right. And sometimes that's okay. And then sometimes you just gotta let it go and trust yourself
Yeah.
that you've done
Hmm.
the right thing. I had directed a show called The Meeting by Jeff Stetson, and it's about a supposed night that Martin Luther King and Malcolm X met one another. And I
Hmm.
just remember I worked those guys who played Dr. King and Malcolm X to the bone. We would be in rehearsal we'd been in rehearsal for 2 hours, but we were hitting it pretty hard. And then I would stop, I would Google, I would look up stuff, and then I would get back to them, and we'd have some intense discussions. And we worked it till it was, but they were blue in the face. And it till the point they're like, okay, Mitchell, I think we have it. Can we stop?
That's awesome.
But I mean,
That's awesome.
by the time we got to the end of that process, one of the things that I got from people when we showed that show was they felt like I resurrected the dead. And so
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
sometimes perfection is good and sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have to trust yourself that you're
Mhm.
doing the work.
Yeah.
Right.
So what drew you to theater?
Two short stories. But one of the reasons that I was drawn to theater was because my mother had a friend. Growing up in a small town in Tennessee, my mother had a friend who got a theater degree, moved to New York, and was in the cast of Dreamgirls, the
Mm,
the original
wow.
production.
Wow.
He was an understudy for James Thunder Early,
Wow.
and and I used to hear stories, and he used to come home and he used to uh, talk about all of his theater stuff with my mom, and I was a young kid then, and it really sparked me to have an imagination. And there used to be in an old school house that we lived in, that was built back in the 40s, back in my town that we lived in. There was a closet that had no doors on it, and we put up a curtain rod, and my mom put curtains on it just to be the doors. Well, I decided, especially after Barry coming to visit us and stuff, I decided I would turn that closet into a stage. And I
That's
forced
awesome.
my brothers to put on plays, and we'd open and close the curtains. And we even took like notebook paper and made playbills. And
Oh.
so
Oh,
I
that's so cool.
true story, I promise you. They hate me to this day for it because they were all jocks. But 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 true story, that's how my interest started. And then obviously I did junior high drama club, high school drama club. I did a little, I minored in theater at Tennessee State University, um, but I was more of a communications major. But it really wasn't until I moved to Arizona and really stuck my foot into what one of my real passions was. And that was in 2005. And then from that point, it was constant from there. I just kept the ball rolling.
Mhm. Everything that you just said, just kind of segues into my next question.
Mhm.
And, that's when we're involved in theater, it's an educational process. We're constantly learning from each other. We're constantly gleaning from each other. Can you share like any strong like educational moments that you found or continue to find as you work in theater?
For me, education, I it's always been a thing where I've wanted people to really love theater, and not just who I consider theater people.
Mm,
A lot of people at my community theater are people that have just stepped off the street, that are curious about wanting to be a part of theater, and they've had a dream of it. And so we've had many people come through our doors that have landed lead roles and never been in a play before.
wow.
Now, was it a lot of hard work? Yes, it
Yeah.
was. And was I nervous a few times? Yes. But we taught a lot of people how to act. We've taught a lot of people how to do props and sound, and it's turned out to be great. It's not been like what a lot of people would consider, I guess, what community theater. Like when I teach, we really teach. And so for me, that's been the strong basis of that. And I've really truly enjoyed, I think, the last 5 years of almost 5 years of doing it, because a lot of people have just wanted to come in and learn. And yes, we've had seasoned people come in and want to help, but that's what they've loved about working with us, is because they feel like I give people a chance. So for me, like, my theater is a teaching theater.
Mhm.
It's a teaching theater. So education is truly important to me.
Yeah. I'm there right with you. I think that theater is a teaching facility.
Mhm.
It teaches us so many things, whether we're an audience member or an artist that's working in it. It teaches us so many things.